Welcome back to Two Rails. In our last video we talked about the Horseshoe Curve. This time we're looking at Gallitzin and its many tunnels. Also its long railroad history. This is the Gallitzin Tunnel. We'll talk more about it in a moment. First we're going to look at the original railroad through here, the Allegheny Portage. The Allegheny Portage Railroad was the first railroad constructed over the Allegheny Mountains in central Pennsylvania. It began operations in 1834, and continued for 20 years until supplanted by the conventional railroad. The railroad's job here was predominantly in carrying river boats and barges over the mountains between the Ohio and Susquehanna rivers. The boats and barges would navigate from the rivers to the railroad using canals, transferring to and from the railroad in Johnstown to the west, and Hollidaysburg to the east. The railroad relied on animals and later conventional steam locomotives for motive power along the flat stretches, but each side of the mountain had 5 steep grades that were too great for these means. Stationary steam engines were built at the top of each of the 10 grades, and used hemp ropes, later wire ropes, to pull up or lower the trains. The horse wagon journey used to take 23 days to get from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh. Between the various railroad and canal systems that were built, that journey was cut down to 4 days. In 1852 trains were able to run all the way between the two cities in just 13 hours. Having been rendered mostly obsolete, the Allegheny Portage Railroad ceased operations in 1854. The Pennsylvania Railroad bought the old rail line in 1857. Much of it was abandoned or used as local branch lines. The area near the summit of the old railroad is now a National Historic Site managed by the National Park Service. A short trail leads from the parking area and museum to the old trackbed. The museum contains exhibits detailing the old railroad route, the trains that were used, and some of the technologies. At the trackbed there is some reconstructed rail, the old engine house 6 with further exhibits, and the Lemon House. The Lemon House was a tavern and a popular stop for railroad passengers. Something that is worthy of note about the Allegheny Portage Railroad is that it was the builder of the third ever tunnel in the United States, and the first ever built for railway use. The first 2 were built for canals. Staple Bend Tunnel began construction in April 1831, and finished 2 years later in June 1833. It is 901 feet long, and can be walked as part of the Staple Bend Tunnel Trail. Back to the tunnels. There are 3 tunnels in Gallitzin, built at different times. Let's try not to get lost. The first tunnel was built by the Pennsylvania Railroad and opened in 1854. Originally it was the Summit Tunnel and it was 3,612 feet long. Today it is known as the Allegheny Tunnel. The second tunnel was built by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for the new Portage Railroad. It opened in 1855, and the new Portage Railroad was bought by the Pennsylvania Railroad in 1857. It was taken out of service almost immediately, but in the 1890s it was expanded and became the primary eastbound tunnel. The third tunnel is the Gallitzin Tunnel, opened in 1904. It was actively used until 1995. The other 2 tunnels were enlarged to permit double-stacked container trains, the new Portage Tunnel being completed in 1993, and the Allegheny in 1995. Once the Allegheny Tunnel was reopened, Gallitzin was taken out of service. On the east side, all 3 tunnels are close to each other. On the west side, the Allegheny and Gallitzin tunnels exit to the north, while the new Portage Tunnel exits to the south. At the exit of the Allegheny Tunnel, a small park with play area and benches has been built. A Pennsylvania cabin car, or caboose, is also parked. Across the road is the town museum. The 3 tracks converge once more just to the west, at Norfolk Southern's AR Tower. Back toward the western slope, the railroad reaches Cresson. Here we find a junction between Norfolk Southern and R.J. Corman's Pennsylvania lines. There is an excellent railroad park here, and just down the road is the Station Inn, a bed and breakfast catering especially to railfans. A unique feature of this area is the railroad's use of helpers. Helper locomotives are typically a crude locomotive or locomotive set, which push a train from the back when going up a grade, or help with braking when coming down. While many helper operations would normally require that the train stop when adding the helpers as well as removing them, some of the helper sets that Norfolk Southern uses in this area have systems that allow the helper crew to disconnect from the train while it is still moving. These are most easily spotted by the gray box at the front of the locomotive. I hope you have enjoyed this brief history of the railroad crossing the Allegheny Mountains in Pennsylvania. Your comments and corrections are always appreciated, so let us know if something is wrong. Have a great day, and happy rails to you.